All rights reserved. We reserve all rights. This is the globe map of the 46 main bases on the alleged continent of Antarctica. The 9 bases circled in red in the top left of the Antarctic Peninsula do not have any periods of 24-hour sunlight, and there are many more bases on that peninsula tip all the same. The globe model says this is because they are too far north of, or just outside of, the circle of latitude that would constantly be facing the sun during the period of September 21st through March 23rd every year at the extreme South Pole, for example, or from as short as only December 10th through January 3rd every year at the outermost or northernmost circle of latitude, due to the Earth's alleged 23-degree tilt, keeping those extreme and small southern circles of latitude constantly facing the sun during these months. Obviously, the 37 bases circled in yellow are all inside that latitude ring, which is why they have, or at least claim to have, various time periods of 24-hour sunlight every year in these months. As my friend Jaron said, who has actually recently been to one of those camps, here at Union Glacier Station, and yes, they were there, despite all of the endless theories and conspiracy theories abound about whether they were really there or not, or whether the apparent 24-hour sun that they witnessed and filmed was real or advanced technological fakery. None of that has anything to do with the hard data and evidence presented in this film. Quote, "So all will agree there are latitude lines on Earth, 90 degrees at the North Pole, then heading down 66 degrees at the North Circle, maybe 40 degrees at New York, 25 degrees in Miami, and 0 at the equator. Then down 20 degrees in mid-South America, 50 degrees at Punta Arenas, 66 at the Southern Circle, 79 at Union Glacier, and 90 degrees at the South Pole. What I realized is that if you move the latitude around the globe, the daylight hours never change. More impressive is that they all, without exception, remember that, match exactly their counterpart. Remember that. So if the daylight hours are 15 hours in New York, then every single place on that latitude all the way around the Earth is the exact same daylight on that day." Unquote. Good, I'm glad you get that and agree. Because if we live on a globe, then what you said has to apply to the latitude circles in the Antarctic and South Pole as well. So one station on the exact same latitude line as any other station there has to have not only the exact same daylight time, but also the exact same length of days for a 24-hour sun, because as you said, every single place on that latitude all the way around the Earth is the exact same daylight on that day. That means one station here cannot be having 5 extra days of a 24-hour sun daylight, while the exact opposite is not also having the exact same 24-hour sun daylight for those same 5 days. And if that's not only not happening, as Jaron says it has to happen on the globe for all Antarctic bases on the same exact latitude, either around and across from each other, but that's not even happening either for the bases only 50 to 170 miles away from each other on both the same latitude and even nearly the same longitude, which as you'll see is the case, then Houston, we have a problem. As my brother Jaron said in his own words, and I love you, brother, if you map the Earth on a sphere, then every sunrise time and angle is predicted and explained and accounted for every single location there is on Earth, the entire globe and all places on it, and for every day for the entire year and years into the future. Which means in record time, since only just over 1 month ago in Antarctica, Jaron must have double-checked every single location there is on Earth, which even a supercomputer couldn't easily do in a month, if at all, to be sure of this statement, even though only 3 short sentences later he admits, "I will say I came to this realization. It would be impossible, straight up impossible, for them to map every location on Earth and correctly account for sunrise and sunset on any model at all, unless it were the truth. So the sphere Earth is the truth, and no one has ever been able to correctly map this place at all unless they place us on a sphere." Even though Nicole Murphy from Law of the Luminaries and I just explained in under 2 hours exactly how to easily do that on a Gleason flat map, and even design software if your budget and time allowed. Once you understand the 7 movements of the apparent sun and moon, their position between the tropics based on the clock and calendar designed to do just that, mixed with the understanding of the sky wheel, the analemma, and the daily 1 degree sun angle altitude shift and 13.22 degree moon angle altitude shift up and down the cone-shaped vortex, which can be double-checked with a compass and your own 2 eyes once you study and understand it, which the secret societies and Jesuits who run the world do. The only place it still works visually from the ground, but doesn't work trying to computer map base locations, is on the alleged globe map of Antarctica, because Antarctica is a giant ice ring on the Gleason map, and the bases would actually be scattered around parts of it. And as you'll see, the globe software clearly doesn't work even remotely accurately on Antarctica either, as Jaron claims. I'm admittedly one of the old-school non-supercomputer models, so while I couldn't possibly map every single location on Earth, I was able to do exactly that for every one of these 46 main Antarctic bases on the only 2 different official websites available. And all I have to say, Jaron, is you keep saying that word accurately. I do not think it means what you think it means, as the overwhelming forthcoming evidence will demonstrate. Before that, astute and discerning attentive minds might have already noticed out of curiosity there were 5 Antarctic bases of major interest, all in the alleged 24-hour sun zone, that I was simply unable to find data for on when and how long that 24-hour sun period lasted at those bases. That doesn't mean the data doesn't exist, so I urge you to go do your own research and see if you can find it. Don't take my word for it. Look for yourselves and let me know. While it proves nothing, and I don't want to use it as speculative fluff to add to the other real, hard data I have already collected, it is quite curious, out of pattern recognition, that every single one of them just coincidentally happens to be within only 50 to 170 miles away from a listed base with checkable 24-hour sun dates and times. So you and I aren't easily, if at all, able to compare any glaring inconsistencies between those 2 neighboring bases. That said, we luckily have a few other close together sets of bases we can cross and double check to see this is all made up bullshit, along with a pile of other hard forthcoming evidence. Again, this is not to troll my friend Jaron. He is honestly asking for an explanation and not name-calling, and that's what this film is. Quote, he found evidence today that cannot be explained in my mind. That doesn't mean, Jaron, it can't be explained. That's called Plato's cave, or an either-or logical fallacy. If your mind can only comprehend option A or B, but the reality lies within options C through Z, you have to choose one false reality, A or B, over another because your mind has not examined the other options, C through Z, and your ego cannot simply say, undetermined at this point. I don't know for certain yet. I'm still searching. Playing around with the Andrew Marsh globe model for the last couple of hours is a great start, but to call that pretty damn conclusive? Now the community needs to check that against other programs and websites to make sure they even match each other, and then have boots on the ground to double-check reality versus computer models. Not just playing around on models for a few hours and making blanket statements like the globe predicts every sunrise and sunset of every place and every year. Except when they don't. Let's get into it. Suspiciously, there are only two major online sources to consult when checking the dates the alleged 24-hour sun periods stop and start at these bases, length of days on the days just before and after, sunrise and sunset times on those days, and solar noontime for these bases on Antarctica. They are timeanddate.com and dateandtime.info. This in itself is strange and a very easy way to control and fudge information, and again, there may be other software, apps, etc., so the community now needs to double check my data and check other sources against this. I was able to find a third site, sunrise.maplogs.com, that had stats on 5 of the 46 major bases of interest for another comparison. And Jaron, you might want to hold off on that NASA t-shirt just yet. You're about to be space busted. Let's start with the accuracy and reliability of this globe model's ability to at least predict what day the alleged 24-hour sun period starts and finishes for each base. Here's McMurdo Station, allegedly located on the inner 77.5 south latitude ring. According to dateandtime.info, the 24-hour sun period starts October 22nd, yet according to sunrise.maplogs.com, it doesn't start until October 23rd, a whole day later. And according to timeanddate.com, it doesn't start until 2 days later on October 24th. This is an error rate of 2 whole days, and none of the 3 even agree. And yet, when you look at the dates they allege the 24-hour sun ends and periods of dusk or sunrise sunset start, suddenly date and time and date both agree it's February 20th. Yet they were off by 2 days from each other when it starts, and sunrise.maplogs claims the 24-hour sun ends a day before that, on February 19th. So while for McMurdo Station, date and time are clearly showing 24-hour sun starting October 22nd, still there the 23rd and 24th, so there are no sunrise sunset stats or day lengths to track and report. Simultaneously, timeanddate.com are giving a very specific sunrise and sunset time on the 22nd, where date and time just said it was already a 24-hour sun. Even an incredibly specific day length time of 22 hours, 57 minutes, and 38 seconds down to the second. and have a partial 1 hour and 2 minute period of nighttime from 12:40 a.m. until 1:42 a.m. on the 23rd, when again time and date said it had already been a 24-hour sun that day and the whole day before on the 22nd. And sunrise.maplogs is also showing very specific sunrise, sunset, and day length times for October 22nd, where date and time claim it was already a 24-hour sun. And by the way, sunrise.maplog's sunrise, sunset times for the 22nd are off by 13 to 18 minutes from time and date, despite both giving details of their alleged certainty down to the second. How can you both be certain to the second of your accuracy and be off from each other so wildly, up to 1 or 2 whole days? McMurdo Station is only 1 kilometer or just over a half a mile long. Imagine it's October 25th and you have to interview 3 different people sitting a few blocks down from each other in McMurdo Station. The pink one claims they saw the sun go down for brief dusk or dark October 22nd and then saw 2 days of the sun in the sky for 24 hours on the 23rd and 24th. But the blue one says, no, I was also here. I saw the sun go down for dusk or dark on both the 22nd and 23rd, and then yesterday on the 24th was the first day the sun never went down. And the green one says, no, you're both wrong. I was also here, and the sun never went down on the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. The 21st was the last day I saw a brief period of dusk or dark. At least 2 of them have to be lying. They can't all disagree and all be correct. But how do you know who's lying? They could all 3 be lying for all you know. Especially when you ask them when they saw the alleged 24-hour sun period end and brief dusk or darkness return. And suddenly, the blue and green both agree on the same day, February 20th, when they disagreed by 2 days in October, and the pink claims, no, I saw a period of dusk or darkness the day before on the 19th. Would you base an entire belief system on their inconsistent testimony, saying, close enough, like Jaron? Or would you smell a rat and investigate all of the bases? To save this film from being 8 hours long, I've spent 2 weeks putting it all into spreadsheets rather than showing you 400 screenshot comparisons. But again, go double check my work. Don't be lazy and blindly trust my spreadsheets like Jaron trusts Globe software. Good research is verifiable. Be aware that timeanddate.com and dateandtime.info are both using a same standard time zone for all 22 bases out of the 46 that they both have information on. But sunrise.maplogs.com is using 5 different time zones, so you have to subtract 5 hours for Casey, 7 hours for Vostok, 6 hours for Davis, and 3 hours for Dumont D'Urville to get them to the same zone as the others. And no, that is not proof of this. That works the same if the bases are scattered around the edge of the ice wall in reality. Even better, as you'll see. Back to McMurdo, we've already seen that they can't agree what day the alleged 24-hour sun starts and ends each year. The last day all 3 agree there wasn't a 24-hour sun was October 21st. So I checked the length of day on that day to see if they at least agree on that, since they're all sitting within a half mile of each other, and then the sunrise and sunset times to see if they at least agree on that. Sunrise.maplogs doesn't track the solar noon, so those are on the other charts we will examine soon. Sunrise.maplogs and timeanddate.com seem to agree close enough for even me within 14 exact seconds on the length of day October 21st. But dateandtime.info says the day was 27 minutes longer. I don't know if that's what Jaron means by if you map the Earth on a sphere, then every sunrise and sunset time and angle is predicted and accounted for every single location there is. McMurdo Station is on the 77.5 south latitude. On the globe model, the equator at 0 latitude has to be spinning at 1,040 miles per hour to make a 24-hour day, because it is said its circumference is 24,901 miles around there. So down where McMurdo is at 77.5 south latitude, the circumference around is smaller, so it must be spinning slower to make the exact same rotation as the equator in 24 hours. Simple enough. That rotational speed at McMurdo would be just over 225 miles per hour, or 3.75 miles per minute. If the day were 27 minutes longer, that's over a 101-mile visible sun distance for a third measuring station located within a half-mile of the other two. And this gets more ridiculous as these day-length discrepancies reach over an hour to 2 hours and 20 minutes from each other, as you'll see. You're talking 300 to 560 miles of visual daylight difference from the same base. Again, if person A is sitting at a cafe in Paris and tells you he saw it get dark at 8 p.m., and then person B, sitting in a cafe 3 blocks down, told you no, he saw it get dark at 10:30 p.m., not 8 p.m., at least one of them is lying. And since you don't know which one, because you weren't there, you can't trust either. They could both be lying for all you know. Especially when 2 of them think there was still a 24-hour sun on February 19th, when one of them claims it got dusk or dark on the 19th. So you go look at February 20th, the first date all 3 agree the 24-hour sun was over, and suddenly the 2 who were within 14 seconds accuracy of each other in October are now 3.5 minutes off from each other, and the one who was off of them by 17 minutes is now off by 45 to 48 minutes from them, nearly an hour or 180 more miles of visual sun on how long the day was. Nor can they agree on what time the sun even rose October 21st. Was it 2:32 a.m., 2:45 a.m., 2:56 a.m.? That's an 11-minute to 24-minute difference from each other. Nor can they agree on what time the sun even set that day. 12:17 a.m., 12:30 a.m., 12:43 a.m.? That's an even worse 13 to 26-minute difference. And you'd think, okay, if dateandtime.info had the earliest sunrise of the 3, they should have the earliest sunset. But no, they have the latest sunset of the 3, and timeanddate.com, who had the latest sunrise, now has the earliest sunset. And the same thing happens on February 20th. The first day they all 3 at least agree the 24-hour sun has finally ended. But this time, instead of timeanddate.com having the latest sunrise of the 3, sunrise.maplog now has it. And instead of timeanddate.com having the earliest sunset, now sunrise.maplogs also has it. And now, instead of an 11 to 24 minute sunrise time difference from each other, it is now 12 to 22 minutes. And instead of 13 to 26 minute sunset time difference, it is now 13 to 22 minutes, 4 minutes less. If there were at least a consistent pattern to their inconsistent relation to each other, this wouldn't be a big deal. But because it keeps randomly switching around between all 3 sites from several days between agreed 24-hour sun periods to different day lengths on the days before and after both periods, to sunrise and sunset inconsistencies on those agreed days, one must question any of their legitimacy. There is no other choice. And it's all of the bases, not just McMurdo. Australia's Casey Station, allegedly 1,615 miles away. A massive 3-day discrepancy between what date the alleged 24-hour sun starts. But at least 2 of them agree, yet dateandtime.info claims it starts 3 days earlier on December 7th. Then, suddenly, all 3 disagree on when it ends. And dateandtime.info now claims it ends 2 or 3 days later than the other 2, claiming a whopping total of 5 to 6 more days of 24-hour sun. Almost off by a week. You call that accurate, Jaron? Because even though sunrise.maplogs had no info on them, I have a sorted list of 18 different bases in the alleged 24-hour sun latitude circle that all have anywhere from 1 to 5 days of total error and discrepancy between timeanddate.com and dateandtime.info, the largest one being 19 days. In fact, there wasn't even a single base that both websites had information on together that didn't have a discrepancy and at least agreed on the total days of 24-hour sun, never mind what dates they allegedly start or stop on, which, by the way, was only 2 out of the 18. One agreed which date it allegedly stopped on, but not which date it started on, and the other one agreed on which date it started on, but disagreed by 2 days on what date the 24-hour sun ended. Astute minds will say, hang on, maybe one of them is really correct, and the other one is just dodgy and way off. That's what I first thought as I looked at all the data, but there are a few problems with that. One I've already showed you. They keep taking turns flip-flopping with no consistent pattern of inconsistency, just as you see here. One time they both agree on the end date of the 24-hour sun for the alleged South Pole Amundsen-Scott base, but disagree on the start date. Yet for Belgrano 2 base, they both agree on the start date but not the end. Another problem is, this is it. These are the 2 major sites that come up online to find this information, the top dogs and nearly only dogs. Shouldn't they both be using the immaculate globe model software and predictions Jaron claims they possess if they are the 2 most trusted sources of this information? Why hasn't the professional community challenged this if one is dodgy and garbage and replaced it with a more reliable resource, if so? Sometimes, but not usually, some other sites come up in searches like timegenie.com, but it only gives sunrise and sunset for the few bases it has, no solar noon or day length. But again, it does show when alleged 24-hour suns start and stop, if you know what dates to look for. So I urge other researchers to take my work and start expanding on it. Though here again, we see timegenie.com shows McMurdo Base having its 24-hour sun period ending Tuesday, February 18th, where there is suddenly a sunrise time and sunset time. And yet the other 3 sites we looked at said there was still a 24-hour sun on Tuesday, February 18th. And so now we have 3 conflicting dates instead of 2. Then it says on Thursday, February 20th, the sun rises at 3:41 a.m. and sets at 12:32 a.m. the next morning, making a 20-hour and 51-minute day, which is an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 54 minutes shorter than the other 3, making 4 majorly conflicting lengths of day. Then a 3:41 a.m. sunrise on Feb 20th, between 35 minutes to 57 minutes later than the other 3. And lastly, a 12:32 a.m. sunset, 35 minutes to 57 minutes earlier than the other 3. The same goes with a site called sunriseandsunset.com with dashes between. Again, Do some research and add it to mine, but be diligent. Because while the other 4 sites think the alleged 24-hour sun at McMurdo ends either February 18th, 19th, or 20th, this site clearly doesn't know when the hell it ends and the dusk sunsets begin. How do you go from a 24-hour sun on February 18th to a 2:54 a.m. sunrise in the middle of a 24-hour sun that never even set to rise again, then back to a 24-hour sun that can only set but not rise again 3 more days in a row, leaving no lengths of day for 5 days in a row despite having specific sunset times, and then finally end February 24th, 4 to 6 days later than the other 4 sites claim. Lastly, as we'll cover later, timeanddate.com and dateandtime.info both usually, but not always, have the exact same solar noontime as each other. But the sunrise, sunset, and day lengths are always different without fail. A smoking gun in itself, as it is impossible to come up with the same solar noontime then, with those always being different from each other, as Nicole Murphy and I covered in great detail in our talk on the secret sacred laws of the luminaries. The globe model seemingly can't predict jack shit accurately, if at all, in Antarctica. Could that be because we don't live on a globe, so they have to lie and fudge it to make it work and hope nobody double checks? But I digress. Back to Casey's station, we find the same suspicious story. Different 24-hour sun start dates, wildly different 24-hour sun end dates, totally different length of daytimes on December 6th, the last agreeable date before the alleged 24-hour sun, off by as much as 44 minutes, even more wildly disagreeable length of daytimes on the first agreed date of no 24-hour sun on January 5th, this time magically off by as much as 53 minutes from each other instead of 44 going in. Its last agreeable day of no 24-hour sun, December 6th, sunrise times are off by as much as 25 minutes from each other, just as its sunset times that same day are off from each other by as much as 23 minutes. As are its January 5th first agreed day of no more 24-hour sunrise times, all off from each other by as much as 50 minutes, yet its same alleged sunset times that day are magically only off by 24 minutes somehow. They're all like that, randomly changing around with no rhyme or reason, as if they're all just make-believe fiction and not part of the amazingly predictable cosmic clock that both ball and flat earthers at least agree on. Vostok has a 4-day difference on when its alleged 24-hour sun period starts, as well as alleged finish date, yet here, like elsewhere, the site that says it starts the earliest says it finishes the latest, and the site that it starts the latest says it finishes the earliest, making the difference of the number of days of 24-hour sun between all three a total of 8 days error. But this is not error because all of the bases have this. Somebody is lying for some reason. Even the middle one is off by 5 days to one of them and then 3 days to the other. Davis base is the same, 3 different alleged 24-hour sun start dates, 2 different alleged end dates. Dumont d'Urville the same, wildly off start dates by 4 days, 3 non-agreeable stop dates off by 3 days. The same goes with the length of daylight on the last agreed day of dusk or night before their alleged 24-hour sun start. You can pause the film now and look for yourself. Take screenshots. Go check for yourself. I'll show you how to navigate these websites at the end of this film. Vostok's length of day before the agreed 24-hour sun starts is off by up to an hour and 9 minutes from each other. Davis is off by up to an hour. Dumont d'Urville is off by up to 43 minutes. Then, on the first agreeable day after the alleged 24-hour sun ends, Vostok's sunrise time is off by up to 2 hours and 4 minutes. What? Davis's sunset time that same day is off by up to 1 hour and 8 minutes, and Dumont d'Urville's sunrise and sunset times are off by as much as 28 minutes from each other. I'm sorry, these are not acceptable rates of error and difference within each base for the alleged speeds their latitude lines are supposed to be rotating at on the globe model. Especially for bases like Casey, Davis, and Dumont d'Urville, which are all three allegedly out or up right on the alleged Arctic Circle 66.16 south latitude ring, which should be rotating faster at 420 miles per hour or 7 miles a minute on the globe model. How can Davis possibly have an hour and 46 minute sunrise time discrepancy on November 22nd? That's a discrepancy of 742 miles of sunlight range. Even the hour or more discrepancy between most of the other bases is still 420 plus miles of sunlight, or 2.5 times the length of the entire country of Denmark. That is not an acceptable rate of error, just like the people in the cafes down the street reporting wildly different sunset times on the same day from literally the same location. Let's stop messing around and get to the kill shot. It's time to show Jaron some latitude with attitude. Major discrepancies at individual bases are damning enough, but when it happens with multiple bases right next to each other, Houston, we have another huge problem. And credit, respect, and hats off to Jaron sincerely for thinking and asking the right question here, because here he is correct. If we live on a globe, what happens in latitude stays in latitude. And here we have Davis, Zhongshan, and Druzhnaya 4, not only on nearly the same latitude, but almost the same longitude. Lucky for us, not so lucky for Globies. Jaron's own Globie Google Earth shows from Davis Station to Zhongshan Station is only 67 miles away. You can see they are at nearly identical latitude lines, off by less than 1 degree, with Davis at 68.34 south and Zhongshan at 69.22 south. They are both also on nearly the same longitude line, only 1 degree off, with Davis at 77.58 east and Zhongshan at 76.22 east. So what Jaron rightly means by what happens in latitude must happen to others on the same latitude on the globe model is that due to the alleged Earth tilt and rotation, that same latitude ring will face the sun at the same angle and same amount of time every day for every location on that same latitude ring. So being only 67 miles apart on nearly identical latitude, there is no way on a globe that one of those stations could be experiencing a day of 24-hour sun without the other also experiencing it, or experiencing a brief sunrise-sunset without the other also experiencing it. And since they are just less than 1 degree apart in south latitude, when you take the middle latitude between them, which is roughly 68.8 east latitude, the Earth rotation speed, or speed the sun would travel as you rotate under it, is 376 miles per hour, or 6.26 miles per minute. Which means since they are only 67 miles apart from each other, and the sun is moving at 6.26 miles per minute along the east-west latitude ring between them, it should take just under 11 minutes between both of their sunrise and sunset times, meaning their sunrise and sunset times can't be off by more than 11 minutes from each other. Not if we live on a globe like Jaron surmises. It also means both their length of days when there is sunrise and sunset can't be off from each other by more than that either, since they are on almost the same latitude and longitude. While Davis Base was one of the ones we were fortunate enough to have 3 different references for to compare, Zhongzhen Station was only shown on dateandtime.info. There was strangely no information available for them on timeanddate.com or sunrise.maplogs.com. But as I said, this seems to be the pattern when bases are close together, like someone doesn't want us comparing. And here's why. There is Zhongzhen Station, 63 miles from Davis. Dateandtime.info says Zhongzhen's period of 24-hour sun starts November 19th, yet the same website says Davis, 63 miles away, doesn't have a 24-hour sun until November 23rd, 4 days later. As Jaron said, Zhongzhen cannot be having 4 days of 24-hour sun when Davis is not, and Davis cannot be having 4 days of dusk sunset when Zhongzhen is not, if we live on a globe. See for yourself right off the website dateandtime.info, sunrise and sunset calendar. There's Davis, November 2024. There's Zhongzhen, November 2024. There's Zhongshan, showing itself having an alleged 24-hour sun starting Tuesday, November 19th, and yet Davis, only 67 miles away on the same latitude, is reporting their midnight sun doesn't start until 4 days later on Saturday, November 23rd, even though that's impossible. And Davis is even showing very specific sunrise and sunset times for the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd, when there shouldn't be any. In fact, Davis is also showing very specific solar noon times and lengths of day for the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd, when Zhongshan claims there's a 24-hour sun. Sunrise.maplogs says Davis's alleged 24-hour sun doesn't even start until November 24th. That's 5 days later than Zhongshan's alleged 19th start. And timeanddate.com says Davis's alleged 24-hour sun starts November 25th, 6 days later than Zhongshan's. Impossible. Then in January 2025, Zhongshan is claimed to be having a 24-hour sun all the way until Thursday, January 23rd, according to dateandtime.info. Yet once again, the same website is showing Davis in January 2025 only having an alleged 24-hour sun until Sunday, January 19th, while Zhongshan claims to still be having one for 4 more days until the 23rd. Yet Davis is showing very detailed sunrise and sunset times, solar noon times, length of days for the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So how is Zhongshan having a 24-hour sun for those same days? And that means, according to dateandtime.info, Zhongshan has a combined 8 more days of 24-hour sun than Davis, 67 miles away on the same latitude. Impossible. And once again, the possibility of Zhongshan having an alleged 24-hour sun all the way until January 23rd is not supported by or possible, with both sunrise.maplogs and timeanddate.com claiming Davis's alleged 24-hour sun ended already 5 days earlier on January 18th. So this impossibility alone proves either we can't and don't live on a globe, or these people are lying about everything. But why lie if we really live on a ball? Anyway, since they so wildly disagree on when the alleged 24-hour sun period even starts, we have to go back to the first day they both agree there wasn't one to see if their sunrise and sunset times, as well as the length of that day, are all within those 11 minutes of each other and no longer. That we discussed has to happen if we live on a ball earlier. In this case, that date is Monday, November 18th, the day before Zhongshan claims their 24-hour sun starts. So I'll put Zhongshan in light blue. Then we'll find that same date for Davis in November, Monday, November 18th, which I'll put in light green. And here they are already busted again for a second time with multiple impossibilities. As my brother Jaron rightly said, everything on the same latitude ring must have the exact same length of day. Davis cannot have a 21-hour, 35-minute, and 57-second long day, while Zhongshan has a 22-hour, 58-minute, and 43-second long day. 1 hour and 23 minutes longer than Davis. That's impossible. When you triangulate Davis's latitude line with Zhongshan's latitude line, there is only a 32-mile difference between them. At 6.26 miles per minute into 32 miles closer to the alleged sun path, the best advantage it could give Zhongshan is an extra 5 minutes and maybe a bit of daytime, not 1 hour and 23 minutes. 1 hour and 23 minutes of extra daytime, or 83 minutes, times the sun traveling at 6.26 miles per minute means somehow the sun is magically still shining light on Zhongshan for an entire 519.6 more miles away than it can shine on Davis, even though Davis is only 67 miles away from Zhongshan. You can see a 6-minute difference between their solar noons, meaning what time the sun is closest to you that day. They are 67 miles apart from each other. Remember, the sun is allegedly traveling overhead due to Earth rotation at 6.26 miles per minute. The sun should take 10.7 minutes to travel between them, not 6. But hell, let's tack on the 5 minutes latitude triangulation and throw them a bone. Because solar noon is the dead middle of when you see the sun rise versus set, give or take 10 to 15 minutes, depending on where you are and what time of year. So you cannot have your solar noon 6 minutes apart from each other if your day length is off by 1 hour and 23 minutes. Your solar noon should be off by that halved, 41 and a half minutes. 6 minutes isn't possible. Their sunrise time is off by a margin of 35 minutes from each other, and their sunset time is off by 48 minutes. They are both only 67 miles apart from each other on nearly the same east-west latitude circle and longitude the sun would pass along at 6.26 miles per minute. Their sunrises and their sunsets have to be within 10.7 minutes of each other, or we don't live on a globe. I'd even give them an extra 5 minutes for latitude and make it 15.7 minutes, but it can't be 35 minutes or 48 minutes. That, again, is impossible. I've now got the bases orientated with north up. At 6.26 miles per minute, in 35 minutes, the orange line, the sun would have already traveled way past Davis Base, 219.1 miles across the shared east-west latitude line, and in 48 minutes, the sun would have already traveled 300.48 miles past Davis, not 67 miles. For the sun to take 48 minutes to travel across the 67 miles between the two bases at that latitude, the Earth would have to almost stop spinning down to 1.39 miles per minute from 376 miles per hour down to 83.7 miles per hour. Everyone would be dead. Yeah, Steve, but that's just the same website. How does Zhongshan compare to timeanddate.com's November 18th times for Davis space? Good question. I love astute minds, so let's see together. Here's timeanddate.com's November 2024 for Davis space with dates, sunrise and sunset times, day length, and solar noon time. Let's go down and do November 18th. And again, you can see Time and Date is reporting very specific times of non-24 hour sun for the 19th through 24th, where dateandtime.info reports Zhongshan already is in alleged 24-hour sun since the 19th. Impossible. Here, debunked again in proof of lying, dateandtime.com in pink now on the bottom is reporting a 2:57 a.m. sunrise for Davis on the 18th of November, while Zhongshan on timeanddate.info is reporting a 2:10 a.m. sunrise, 47 minutes earlier. Impossible, as just explained. They are reporting a 12:07 a.m. sunset and an hour and 2 minutes earlier than Zhongshan, both impossible. As just happened previously, they only have a 6-minute difference in solar noon time, but the length of day is off by an hour and 41 minutes from each other. Impossible. When we look at January 23rd, where they all at least agree the alleged 24-hour sun has ended, we see the exact same bullshit, not even close discrepancies between all the websites as we just covered in detail the last 15 minutes. But I don't want this film to drag on for 3 hours, as I have dozens more examples of this and other smoking guns that the whole thing is a blatant made-up fiction. In fact, there isn't a single instance where any of these match up and make sense. But there are always those kinds of people who just don't get it, even as the astute people will be hitting pause right now to compare the January 23rd statistics and double-check my word for it. Meanwhile, the Vapegate crowd...
My brother is named Bilo. He is a retard with a small head and 200 teeth. Bilo! His son is named Boltok.
I may be taking the piss out of my friend Jaren for fun, who in fairness asked for it. But don't mistake me for a second. My opinion is that he and Austin are not shills. I can't speak for Bilo the retard's son, Botok the rapist, Will Duffy here in the middle. I don't know him. But they did not fake anything and really saw what they believed to be a 24-hour sun in Union Glacier. As Nicole Murphy and I exhaustively covered for 3 hours in the same talk I have been hinting and urging you to go watch, our opinion is that they really could have seen what would appear to be a 24-hour sun in Union Glacier at a purposely chosen time of year and position on the ice wall on the real metaphysical flat Earth, quite different from the current accepted but incorrect Jesuit Newtonian physics-based flat Earth model, incorrectly depicting the misunderstood luminary paths above our head. My buddy Dave Weiss and Marty Leeds have good evidence and reason to believe the 24-hour sun they all saw was modern, holographic technological fakery, and Austin and Jaren were just unwitting dupes. Both opinions are just our opinions, speculation and conjecture. But what I'm showing you in this film is that the official data I'm presenting here is solid proof that this map and model is too impossible to be actual reality, or at least just one of the 46 bases in the alleged 24-hour sun zone would match up with at least itself and or another one at least once, but none of them do, ever. We need to look at and understand solar noon versus clock noon together to understand how damning this evidence is. We'll go to Miami on the southern tip of Florida on the June 21st summer solstice, since it's close to the Tropic of Cancer, where the sun is circling around on June 21st on both the globe and flat Earth map. There's the Tropic of Cancer cutting right under Miami. Solar noon just means as the sun comes around the latitude ring that day, in this case on the Tropic of Cancer on June 21st, what time is it on the clock when the sun is at its closest point to you, the observer in Miami? Here on the flat Earth map, the Tropic of Cancer is the little green ring inside the larger blue and red rings. So it's the same. As the sun comes around the Tropic of Cancer latitude ring on June 21st, what time is it on the clock when the sun is closest to you before going farther away from you? It has nothing to do with what time your clock says it is when the sun is closest to you that day. So for example, we can see Marco Island is roughly 91 miles slightly northwest of Miami, maybe 70 miles if we start at West Miami, but whatever. So the sun always rises in the east and will obviously reach Miami slightly before it reaches Marco Island. So we can see for Miami, their solar noon on the June 21st solstice, or just the time on the clock the sun is closest to Miami before going away from Miami, is 1:22 in the afternoon, an hour and 22 minutes after their clock said it was clock noon. While for Marco Island, 91 miles west of Miami that same day, their solar noon point, where the sun is closest to Marco Island before it starts going away from Marco Island, is 1:28 in the afternoon on the clock, 6 minutes later than Miami's solar noon. That's simply because it took the sun 6 more minutes to get from Miami to Marco Island on its east to west path during the day. Or in other words, the sun was at its closest point to Miami 6 minutes before it was at its closest point to Marco Island. That's solar noon. Clock noon is based on fictional time zones, so everyone in the red zone is having the exact same clock noon at the exact same clock time each day, even though they may be as far as 800 miles east or west of each other, and the sun may be closer to one than the other at that moment. So since Miami and Marco Island are both in the same red clock time zone, they always share the same clock noon, but their solar noons when the sun is closest to them is off by 6 minutes, the time it takes the sun to travel the 91 miles between them. Which is why Miami's sunrise and sunset times on June 21st in yellow on top are exactly 6 minutes before Marco Island's sunrise and sunset times that same day on the bottom. You can see their day lengths are nearly the same as each other by less than a minute due to being almost on the same latitude line, as Jaron points out. And Marco Island's solar noon time in orange at the bottom is also 6 minutes after Miami's solar noon time in yellow at the top, as we just explained. If you're wondering why are their solar noon times at 1:22 and 1:28 in the afternoon instead of at actual clock noon on the clock, it's because their shared clock time zone of UTC-5, now shown in a dark blue strip, starts way the hell out east of Miami in the Atlantic Ocean. So on June 21st, at clock noon for both Miami and Marco Island's time zone, the sun is actually all the way over there out east and takes an hour and 22 to an hour and 28 minutes to get to the closest point to both of them for their solar noons as it travels west that day. Or like this on the flat earth map, if that globe map made you flat earthers cringe. So here's another huge problem, And for those who want to shut up about VapeGate and actually do something useful by checking other apps and sites and expound on my legwork here, you need to look at solar noons. Even though timeanddate.com and dateandtime.info can't even agree on what date the alleged 24-hour sun starts or ends, or how many days of the alleged 24-hour sun each has at any of these bases, when you check the first day before or the first day after they both agree there even is no 24-hour sun, both almost always have the exact same solar noon. Which means both websites have to know exactly where each of these bases are and what clock time the sun is closest to each base to agree on that. So they have to also have the exact same sunrise and sunset times and length of days for each base. Yet they never do, not even once. See for yourself, marked in orange, Casey, Dumont d'Urville, Mawson, Rothera Research Station, San Martin and Davis, and Showa, not Siowa like the map, all have the exact same solar noons for both websites. Also Mario Zucchelli, Concordia, and Dome Fuji, also marked in orange. Again, these are just for the first date they both at least agreed there wasn't a 24-hour sun yet at these bases, like October 30th, 29th, 22nd, etc. And yet, despite the exact same precise solar noon times as each other, Casey's sunrise time is off by 35 minutes from each other, sunset by 19 minutes, day length by 44 minutes, Dumont off by 26 minutes, 18 minutes, and 43 minutes, Mawson off by 15 minutes, 13 minutes, and 34 minutes, Rothera off by 15 minutes, 16 minutes, and 20 minutes, San Martin by 32 minutes, 34 minutes, and 53 minutes, Davis by 29 minutes, 15 minutes. How can your sunrise time be off by 29 minutes and your sunset time by only 15 if you have identical solar noons? And 15 minutes total day length. Showa by 29 minutes, 15 minutes, and 15 minutes. The same goes for Mario Zucchelli, Concordia, and Dome Fuji. All three the exact same solar noon times on both sites, yet Mario Zucchelli is off by 26 minutes sunrise, 27 minutes sunset, 35 minutes total day length. Concordia is off by 19 minutes sunrise, then only 10 minutes sunset, and 40 minutes length of day, however that's possible. And Dome Fuji is off by 29 minutes sunrise, but only 9 minutes sunset, then 38 minutes total day length, leaving no other conclusion than these are all made up fictions and not reality, as they are impossible to be so far off from each other. And it's no different when we go to January and February and look at the first days both websites at least agree there isn't an alleged 24-hour sun anymore at each base. You can hit pause and look for yourself. You're looking at the base, the first date both websites agree there was no more alleged 24-hour sun, then the sunrise and sunset time for that base for each website, then the length of day each reports for that day, and when they report solar noon is. If you see the color blue and green next to each other, it means they don't match each other, which they have to. If you see two whites in solar noon, it means they match each other exactly. More interesting is that if you pause and look, you'll see the total time differences and discrepancies for each base and category from the last agreed day of no alleged 24-hour sun in November and December do not match the total time differences and discrepancies for the first agreed day of no alleged 24-hour sun for each base in January and February. For example, Newmeyer 3's November 13th sunrise times are off by 30 minutes from each other, while their January 28th sunrise times are off by 51 minutes from each other. A whopping 21 minutes inconsistency from each other to be reality. Again, it is not a consistent inconsistency. If they were all both always consistently off from each other by the exact same amount of time for each category for each base on any given day, you could argue against the evidence, but they aren't, so you can't. At least one has to be lying. And again, since you don't know which one, you don't know they aren't both lying. What is also interesting is that despite getting the exact same solar noon times right together for 10 of the bases they both had statistics for, they didn't get them right at all for 6 of the bases. Dumont-D'Urville is off by an hour and 2 minutes. That's a typo error on my part. Date and time should be 11:44:26 a.m., not p.m. Neumeyer 3 is off by an hour. Mizuho-Cohen by 17 minutes, twice the time it takes the sun to get from Miami to Marco Island. Vostok is off by an hour. Belgrano 3 is off by 8 hours. What? Another major smoking gun we'll get to shortly. And Troll Station is off by 3 hours. As we already covered, what happens in latitude stays in latitude. Troll Station is nearly on the same latitude line as Senai 4, allegedly, while Conan Station is allegedly on our inner southern latitude ring closer to the alleged South Pole. Get this in your mind. On the globe model, because of the alleged tilt of the Earth, in the months between September through March, the closer you are to the alleged South Pole or dead bottom of the alleged globe, you should be having longer date periods of alleged 24-hour sun. Then the length of days you have just before and after that period should be longer than those bases farther north or up the globe towards the equator and north of the South Pole, and the sunrise and sunset times should be earlier and later from solar noon on the same longitude, since the day lengths should be longer. If this is not the case, which you'll see it is not, then we cannot live on a globe with an Antarctic continent. Period. Let's look at Sanei 4, the most northern base of these three, which should have the shortest length of daylight in these months, since the closer you are to the South Pole in the winter, the longer your daylight should be, versus Conan Station, which should have the longest length of day, and Troll Station between them, which should be in the middle of the two. These bases are very close to each other. Conan Station is allegedly only 236 miles south of Sanei 4 and just 210 miles south of Troll Station. Troll Station is only allegedly 119 miles east of Sanei 4 and just a meager 26 miles south of latitude from Sanei 4, making them almost identical in latitude. And what happens in latitude, Jaren, stays in latitude. The first ridiculous thing to notice is that despite Troll Station being only 26 miles south of Sanei 4 in latitude, dateandtime.info says Troll Station somehow has 2 more days of 24-hour sun ending February 2nd than Sanei 4, just 26 miles north, ending 2 days earlier on January 31st. That's as ridiculous as you turning up 2 days late for work and telling your boss you're on time. So here's how we know they are lying. When we go back to Tuesday, October 29th, the last date that dateandtime.info agrees all 3 bases did not have a 24-hour sun, the length of days almost looks fine. Sanei 4, the most northernly away from the alleged South Pole, should have the shortest length of day, and it does. 19 hours, 4 minutes, and 35 seconds. Troll Station, just 26 miles south, should have a slightly longer day than Sanei 4, and it does. 19 hours, 16 minutes, and 23 seconds, about 12 minutes longer. And Conan Station should have the longest day, and it does, 22 hours, 45 minutes, and 5 seconds. But hang on, Conan Base is allegedly only 210 measly miles south of Troll Station, and it is having a 3.5 hour longer daylight on October 29th than Troll Station. Sure, Steve, you obviously don't get globe physics. Okay, but then explain this. Troll Station is allegedly on the 72nd south latitude ring, just 119 miles east of Sanae 4 on nearly the exact same latitude ring, just 26 miles south of Sanae 4, meaning the sun should be moving 321.5 miles per hour between them, or reaching Troll Station 22.24 minutes before it reaches Sanae 4 on October 29th for sunrise, and it should be setting 22.24 minutes before Sanae 4 for sunset. So how the hell is Troll Station getting an alleged 10:55 p.m. sunrise compared to Sanae 4's 5:22 a.m. sunrise? 5.5 hours later, when it should be only 22 minutes later? And how in the hell is Troll Station getting its sunset that day at 6:11 p.m. when Sanae 4 is getting its sunset at 12:27 a.m. the next morning, getting 6 hours and 16 minutes more evening sun time than Troll Station, when it should be setting 22 minutes later than Troll, not 6 hours after? An alleged Earth rotating at 321.5 miles per hour at their alleged 72 south latitude would put the sunset distance 3,822 miles west of both bases over that 6 hours and 15 minutes different, not the 119 miles between them required for the globe model to be non-fiction. And in fact, since both bases are allegedly only 119 miles apart, taking 22 minutes for the sun to travel between them, how is Troll Station getting a solar noontime of 8:33 a.m. on October 29th, and Sanae 4 getting their solar noon at 2:54 p.m., 6 hours and 21 minutes later instead of 22 minutes later, when they are on nearly the exact same latitude line by only 26 miles difference? Impossible on a globe. The Earth would have had to almost stop that day and kill everyone on it with 1,000-mile-an-hour tsunamis, or they are lying about these base locations and times because they are really scattered along an ice wall and not where and when they claim they are located on their fake globe model. Let's look at Maitri Station, owned by India. It is 331 miles east of Sanae 4 Station. As you can see, they too are nearly on the exact same latitude ring, off by 1 degree. Do you want me to say it, or do you want to? Jaren, what happens in latitude stays in latitude. As you can see, Maitri Station is allegedly at 70.45 degrees south latitude, just outside or north of Sanae 4 Station, allegedly at 71.4 degrees south latitude. So it's very easy for us to take the average between them, which would be roughly 70.9 degrees south latitude, giving us an alleged west to east Earth rotation speed of 340.4 miles per hour. From here, we can go again to Tuesday, October 29th, the last day any of these 4 bases agree there was no 24-hour sun yet, and make some general calculations that must apply if we live on a spinning globe, and check Maitri against Sanae 4 to see if this lines up or fails miserably like all of the others. Spoiler alert. Since Maitri is about 331 miles east of Sanae 4, the sun must rise there first, as the alleged globe spins around, and since the alleged globe is spinning at 340.4 miles per hour on that latitude between them, we should see Sanae 4's sunrise time just under an hour after Maitri, 50-some minutes later. We should also see Maitri's solar noon time roughly 50-some minutes before Sanae 4's, just like we saw with Miami and Marco Island. We should see Maitri's sunset time also happen 50-some minutes before Sanae 4's sunset. And lastly, their length of day should be pretty close to each other, since they are only 1 degree apart of latitude, and Sanae 4 should have a slightly longer day length than Maitri, even if only by a few minutes or so, since it is allegedly closer to the South Pole and Earth tilt, putting it more towards the sun, even if ever slightly. And here's an even bigger elephant in the room. Maitri Station is only 1 degree north of latitude, or literally only 60.9 miles further away from the sun than Sanae 4. So how can their alleged 24-hour sun period start 3 whole days later at Maitri Station on November 13th, after Sanae 4 allegedly gets a 24-hour sun 3 days earlier already on November 10th? And how can Maitri Station's alleged 24-hour sun end January 28th, 3 to 4 days earlier than Sanae 4? That's a total difference of Sanae 4 getting 6 to 7 more days of 24-hour sun than Maitri Station, despite only being 60 miles south of it. Give me a break, but I digress. So remember, their solar noon, day length, sunrise, and sunset times should be off from each other by about 50+ some minutes due to the sun's alleged east-west latitude speed of 340.4 miles per hour between their close 331-mile proximity. So here is Sanae 4 in yellow for Tuesday, October 29th, and here is Maitri in the pink for the same day. The solar noons look good. Maitri's is 58 minutes before Sanae 4, in the 50+ some minutes range we predicted. But Maitri's alleged day length is only 30 minutes shorter than Sanae 4, yet their sunrise is only 43 minutes earlier than Sanae 4, despite solar noons being 58 minutes apart. And Maitri's sunset is 1 hour and 13 minutes before Sanae 4, with the sun allegedly traveling at 340.4 miles per hour or 5.67 miles per minute. Their 60.9 mile latitude difference is only 10.7 minutes difference, not a 30-minute day length difference or 30-minute difference between sunrise and sunset times. By the way, these are even worse when we look at Sanae 4 and Troll Station again on nearly the exact same latitude by just 26 miles when we go to Sunday, February 2nd. The first day they at least both agree they are finally finished with their alleged 24-hour sun period. You can see Troll Station still claims to be having a 24-hour sun February 1st, while Sanae 4 on the same latitude is pretty certain they had a 22-hour, 37-minute, and exactly 1 second day length on February 1st, or 1 hour and 23 minutes of no visible sun in the sky. But it gets worse. How can you be 119 miles apart on the same east-west latitude on February 2nd, and Troll Station claims they had a 22-hour, 43-minute day, and Sanae 4 claims a 22-hour and 2-minute day, 41 minutes less? Then Troll has a solar noon at 9:03 a.m., and Sanae's at 6 hours and 22 minutes later at 3:25 in the afternoon, despite being only 113 miles west on the same latitude. It took the sun 6 hours to go 113 miles at 320 miles per hour? Okie dokie, sounds legit. Then Troll has a 9:42 p.m. sunrise versus a 4:24 a.m. sunrise 6 hours and 42 minutes later, 113 miles west on the same latitude, and Troll has an 8:25 p.m. sunset, and Sene 4 6 hours later at 2:25 a.m. That's how long it takes the sun to go around a quarter of the entire Earth at the equator. Could that be because that's exactly how far apart these bases really are from each other, and how long it takes the apparent sun to traverse them around the Tropic of Capricorn? In fact, even this area here, just off the tip of South America, is extremely telling and interesting to look at. Because funny enough, right here where this arm jets out on the flat Earth map ice wall, where the ice comes out to almost meet the latitude ring at the bottom of South America, is an identical match for what we call the Antarctic Peninsula on the globe SCAM map, which just happens to be right where the globe claims are the only bases on Antarctica that do not experience an alleged period of 24-hour sun, here circled in red. Which is interesting because they all seem hell-bent on crowding the tip and west side with bases, or the north top side from this view, but then nobody builds a single base on this entire Gulf Bay coastline, all the way around here on the other side until they get over to Belgrano 2, Haley, etc., and then start packing them again next to each other. All of this, nothing, and then suddenly bases. Why not a single base on all of this expanse of coastline? Could it be because the rest of the bases are on the ice wall, not the peninsula? Is that the big secret they are hiding with all of these fake times and locations? They are studying the ice wall. That's the Antarctic Treaty. And so there are no bases here until Belgrano, because Belgrano 2 is exactly where that peninsula ends and meets back up with the ice wall, right there. Nicole Murphy and I covered in detail for over an hour in our talk on the secret sacred laws of the luminaries and the 24-hour Antarctic sun explained several ways how a cold, apparent but not real 24-hour circling sun could absolutely appear at a certain Goldilocks sweet spot zone along the entire near inner ice wall, not too close to the farthest outer edge of the wall and not too far in on the giant ice peninsula, but right where all of these bases are on the coastline, claiming to have real apparent 24-hour sun phenomenon some of the year. We expected the Globers to ignore it, but the silence from the Flat Earth community has been deafening. Where you at, Jaron and Austin? You asked for explanations, we gave them in detail. As for the alleged final experiment, which needs to be strictly controlled of all variables to even call it an experiment and not just weekend at Bernie's igloo. Okay, 6 people were told they were dropped here, at one base, Union Glacier, conveniently missing from online sunrise, sunset, and 24-hour sun websites. To my knowledge, they did no type of control to prove they weren't actually dropped here, in what we contend is a possible 24-hour sun sweet spot. As light is nothing more than a sound wave vibrating in the ether, the source of that sound wave can be non-local to Union Glacier. Again, Jaron, not Austin, is also using the either-or logical fallacy to draw a fallacious conclusion of opinion, not based in actual fact, which is not how scientific experiments and sound logical reasoning work. He saw what he thought was a 24-hour space fireball sun circling his head, ignoring the obvious reason it can't be, which we'll get to. And since this ridiculous Jesuit Newtonian hybrid flat Earth model doesn't and can't explain it, and I agree with him 1000% that that is true, then he thinks it has to be this equally ridiculous globe model, which he spent 10 years debunking thoroughly on the air. That's the either-or fallacy. If it can't be option A, it must be option B. Again, Dave Weiss and Marty Leeds showed there is both motivation, financing, and long available technology to easily fake this. That is option C. There is option D, that he really did see an apparent cold circling ball of light spinning around his head that the mystery schools, ancients, and Freemasons call an apparent sun or the second sun, which can happen in certain locations when acoustic waves from the source sun way up high in the toroidal field, remember light is just sound vibrations collapsing the ether, which then sends vibrations bouncing down in 3D around the parabolic toroidal field, and they meet at certain sweet spots, creating the other end of those vibrational waves as a visible apparent cold light. This is no different than TV, radio, and satellite dishes work when they use parabolic reflection. When you watch TV, you wouldn't say the Kardashians are physically living and behaving like retards right there in that dish receiver hooked up to the coaxial cable leading to your TV. They are in a studio too far away for you to see them, being transmitted through vibrational waves from a tower or a satelloon to your dish that bounce off the back of the dish and meet at a sweet spot right there and recreate apparent Kardashians for you to watch. They're not real, but they look real to you. But their source signal isn't moving around in a giant circle. The distant television tower is dead still, and your dish has only one small parabolic side, so there is only one sweet spot where all the waves meet. In a toroidal field, the source sunlight, or vibrational frequency transmitter, or beginning of the frequency wave, is moving around and has an enclosed 3D toroidal donut shape to bounce those frequency vibration waves off in all directions. So whereas the radio dish has only one still sweet spot, the signals can all come back together at to give you an apparent TV or radio station in your coaxial cable. There could be multiple spots all the way around the 3D circular donut shape that will each have an apparent circling reflection point, since the source frequency wave generator, or sun, is circling above and the source is coming from inside the parabolic donut, not from far away outside like a radio dish. Just like all these houses can get the same apparent Kardashian show in their living rooms despite not all being in the exact same place. Think of a stadium rock concert. The guitarist and amp are on a raised stage in the middle of the stadium. The little 4-foot guitar amp is the single source frequency wave generator that can be heard by everyone anywhere in the stadium at the exact same time at any location in that stadium, but it changes in wave amplitude and character and sounds less intense as you get incrementally farther away, and it's too intense and painful to listen to if you're standing front row right in front of the speakers amplifying that guitar amp. Now think of the source sun frequency wave generator circling up top in the red as the guitar amp, the toroidal field around it all as the stadium, and the firmament flat earth plane of inertia in the middle as where everyone is standing listening to the concert. In that stadium, there might be a dozen different bathrooms marked as red dots scattered in a circle around the outer perimeter in the hallways, and even though the band and guitarist are on the big orange stage in the middle, everyone taking a piss in all dozen of those bathrooms can still hear a less intense version of that same exact source guitar amp at the exact same time as each other, despite not being able to see the stage and being in a dozen totally different locations around the stadium. That's how sound waves work, And since light is just different frequencies of sound waves vibrating the ether and causing local illumination, now think of the ice wall as bathrooms all the way around the stadium and the real source sun way up high as the guitar amp on stage, far out of actual human sight capability and maybe even too intense and invisible for the human eye frequency band to see. Just like we can't hear dog whistles, but our dog's reactions confirm to us the whistle frequencies are real and there. Not a single person taking a piss in any of those dozen bathrooms would claim that since they can hear a portion of the sound wave of the guitarist's guitar amp in that bathroom, that is proof that the guitar amp itself must be right there in the bathroom, close and local, and not out on stage in the middle of the stadium. Because that would sound like,
My brother is named Bilo. He is a retard with a small head and...
So when we marry that with parabolic reflection, that TV receiver has to be right exactly there if it wants to recreate an apparent Kardashian show on your TV. If that receiver is any closer to the dish or any bit farther away or even a few millimeters too far left or right of dead center of that dish and that exact distance from the dish, it won't work at all. Or if it's off by just a tiny bit of millimeters in any direction, it gets some of the signal but has distortions, like you get when you use spherical mirror-shaped reflection instead of parabolic shapes. That's why we don't use perfectly round spheres for our TV and radio dishes. They leave this weird football-shaped distortion. Instead, we use parabolic shapes more like an oblate spheroid donut shape based on a toroidal field, because they have a nice crisp reflection point, so long as the source frequency isn't moving. Many people have pointed out the sun often turned into a squished oval American football shape in the 24-hour sun time-lapse footage they took in Antarctica. Obviously, that can't happen to a giant Jesuit space fireball 93 million miles away, so they are stuck trying to physically explain it away as some kind of camera distortion or digital rendering problem because their brains can't think metaphysically that it may be distortions in the apparent sun wave since the source sun above is moving. It is even more distorted and obvious on the video footage on the left that suddenly appeared out of nowhere, claiming to be taken by someone a few years earlier, but for some reason nobody could find until now. When you put it in negative, it's very obvious. The same phenomenon is happening. And because neither of their Jesuit Newtonian materialism models can account for a giant space fireball suddenly squishing into a blob 2 or 2.5 times wider than it normally is, they have no choice but to fall back into either-or logical fallacy thinking. It's either the camera digital rendering doing that, or it's some kind of atmospheric mirage, even though clearly neither of those happen when people film the 24-hour summer sun in the north of Sweden, Finland, Lapland, even though the atmosphere has more humidity there to distort vision. It must seem like magic to them, so they just don't address this obvious problem. Do you see a giant squishy blob in the northern summer 24-hour sun? This fallacious thinking also stops their brain from asking the obvious next logical question. If that really is a giant magic space fireball on either model, how is it that the Lapland cities like Longyearbyen on Norway's Svalbard Island and the rest are all having their hottest and most humid months of the year during their months of 24-hour summer sun from June 21st through mid-August up to 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, even though it's below freezing or just above the rest of the year? And pay attention, they're allegedly on 78.13 degrees northern latitude. Yet Jaron and crew are standing down in Union Glacier in December under their alleged 24-hour summer sun on the exact same alleged latitude ring as Kunlun Station, 80.2 degrees south latitude, so nearly identical to their northern Longyearbyen Svalbard counterpart, Union Glacier and Kunlun allegedly already having a 24-hour sun since a month earlier on November 21st, yet after a month of 24-hour sun, it's not 10 degrees Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit on Union Glacier like it is in their northern Longyearbyen's twin counterpart in their summer. Jaron and crew are freezing their asses off in -4 to -6 Celsius or 21 to 24 degrees Fahrenheit, well below freezing. The globe model says, yeah, there's Svalbard at 78 degrees northern latitude, and there's Union Glacier at nearly identical 80 degrees south latitude. And since Svalbard is allegedly tilted towards the sun in its summer, that's why it is having 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degree Fahrenheit weather and a 24-hour sun instead of below freezing like usual, and also why it is having 76% humidity, as evaporating water and ice from heat causes humidity. Paradoxically, when its latitude twin Union Glacier allegedly faces the exact same alleged space fireball for its summer and alleged months of 24-hour sun, that fireball doesn't heat them up at all. It keeps them well below freezing and magically never melts any ice or snow. While the North gets 76% humidity, when the retards were all screaming about Vapegate, as Jaron rightly explained, you can't see your breath in Antarctica because there is 0.0023% humidity, not 76%. One would think any rational person would put this all together and start to question if they are seeing a metaphysical electromagnetic light phenomenon or even fake technology, since either way, it defies all attributes of a physical space fireball, but apparently not. I need to tie this all together so we can get to these two smoking guns, Rothera and San Martin, which absolutely debunk Jaron's fallacies and false claims. Remember, Jaron has made the claims, not me, so I don't have to prove anything, I just have to disprove his. His first claim that the Earth must be a globe because it's the only way this globe software can so accurately predict sunrise, sunset times, day lengths, etc., has already been destroyed and will be slam dunk flushed down the toilet shortly with even more undeniable proof. His second claim is that seeing a 24-hour sun in Antarctica can only happen on a globe, which Dave Weiss and Marty Leeds have shown can be faked. So that alone destroys Jaron's claim. Whether that sun was faked or not, it is a real possibility that must be explored and debunked before Jaron's claim has any validity. And I will show you that a 24-hour sun is absolutely possible in certain areas on a flat plane of inertia inside a metaphysical toroidal field at certain times of the year, which also destroys Jaron's baseless claim that it can only happen on a globe. Whether what I propose is actually happening or not, it is a real possibility which must be further researched and disproven before it can be taken off the table and any validity given to Jaron's second baseless claim. So an airplane drops 6 or so people off here, and they see and film what looks like a 24-hour circling summer sun that magically doesn't melt ice or snow or cause humidity like its northern counterpart, and they have no clue if here is here or if here is really here. Just like channel apparent but not real source Kardashians will never turn up anywhere in this dish except this sweet spot right here, the apparent circling sun source wave frequencies will never appear anywhere else off the toroidal field than here, not here and not further out here. So if Union Glacier is really here, they could see the apparent sun circling around them overhead because its source frequency transmitter, or real sun, is circling overhead. And the waves are focusing now off of a three-dimensional toroidal donut dish, not a little partial one-sided dish off your roof like the Kardashians with a non-circling transmitter tower. But even these are just oversimplified two-dimensional cross-representations of wave behavior. A toroidal field is three-dimensional, so Union Glacier here could be seen rather like this. Think of them being dropped off here, or there, because since the toroidal field is an enclosed 360-degree parabolic donut-shaped TV dish, and the transmitting source frequency is circling inside the dish, not a stationary tower far away, the same exact wave signal could possibly appear anywhere and everywhere in that sweet spot around the dish, simultaneously at the exact same time and sweet spot location all around an ice wall. No different than everyone in every bathroom around the Rock Stadium still getting to hear the apparent end of the guitar amp wave frequency, but not the actual guitar amp source frequency itself at the exact same time. Just because the amp isn't in the bathroom next to you doesn't mean you can't experience it. Again, this is not to make any claim that this is what is actually going on. That might not be what's happening at all. It is only to show that we can observe this kind of phenomenon in various cymatic experiments and techniques, using things like cymoscopes, where audible sound waves make visible light in water mediums via their vibrations, as do experiments like the famous star in the jar. So again, one cannot claim a 24-hour sun in one spot in Antarctica can only be explained by the globe model. This is a very real and repeatable phenomenon that would have to be studied and debunked, just like the possibility this was faked with plasma technology, before moving on to any such claim. Which brings us back to these two bases, Rothera and San Martin, the only two bases allegedly on the Antarctic Peninsula claiming to have 24-hour sun periods. They are nearly on identical south latitude lines. Rothera allegedly on 67.33 degrees south and San Martin allegedly on 68.07 south, just 47 miles east and west of each other, with only a 10.5 mile difference between their alleged latitude locations, closer than you probably drive to work and back each day, and a jogger could casually run their measly latitude difference in an hour or less on foot. Again, as Jaron says, we cannot live on a globe if the identical latitudes don't have matching day lengths and same identical date periods of alleged 24-hour sun and non-24-hour sun. So timeanddate.com reports San Martin's alleged 24-hour sun starts November 27th, 3 full days earlier than it reports Rothera, just 10.5 miles north. Impossible. And dateandtime.info says, no, San Martin's alleged 24-hour sun starts November 25th and Rothera's November 28th. Another 3 days difference, and that is also 2 full days earlier than Time and Date's alleged start dates. So not only do they debunk themselves, they debunk each other. Then timeanddate.com claims the alleged 24-hour sun period ends for San Martin as late as January 16th and Rothera's January 13th, meaning San Martin is having 6 more days of an alleged 24-hour sun than Rothera, despite being only 10 miles south. Get out of here. Date and Time claims even a day longer for San Martin on the end, with the 24-hour sun ending January 17th, not 16th, and Rothera ending a day later on January 14th, not 13th. two bases on nearly identical latitude having 45 days of 24-hour sun? Or is it 48 days? Or is it 51 days? Or is it 54 days? That's a 9-day difference between the shortest 45 days and longest 54 days claim, 47 miles apart from each other and 10 miles north of each other. And Jaron cannot have his cake and eat it too, because if he claims this software is just not accurate, that debunks his claim that the globe model is proven by its accurate software predictions. And again, when we go to the last day, they both at least agree there was no 24-hour sun, despite both sites agreeing on each base's solar noon times to the exact second and claiming to know their day lengths precisely to the exact second. Rothera is off by 20 minutes and San Martin is off by 53 minutes, and they're off by that much from each other, despite a 10-mile latitude difference. Again, their median latitude between their alleged 67.33 south and 68.07 south is 67.7 south latitude, putting the alleged Earth rotation and sun speed at 394.7 miles per hour or 6.57 miles per second, meaning the sun would travel that 10.5 miles latitude difference in just under 2 seconds, not 53 minutes. And yes, the same crap happens on the first day they at least agree the alleged 24-hour sun period ends in mid-January. Same solar noon times, but the day lengths are off by 24 minutes for Rothera, now 56 minutes for San Martin, and as long from each other. But it's not even just that, because Rothera allegedly sits on the identical latitude ring with Mawson Base and nearly the same ring as Moldodesnaya, Casey, and Mirny Base. And San Martin allegedly sits on an identical latitude ring with Davis Base and nearly Leningradskaya, Druzhnaya, and Neumayer too, so we can compare those as well. Obviously, sunrise and sunset times and solar noons wouldn't be the same on a spinning globe, but day lengths and dates of alleged 24-hour sun periods have to match, or we cannot be on a globe. And let me clarify, because astute minds and even Jaron will rightly say, well, why is it that these latitude day lengths are matching up elsewhere on the Earth but not Antarctica? Obviously, Jaron did not go physically double-check those day lengths with his own eyes and a clock to verify it's not just software filling in predictive latitude calculations via GPS coordinates. But let's say they are correct. It's simple, because once you understand the paths and changing altitudes of the luminaries going around the latitude circles between the tropics, the sun raising 1 degree per day up the Christmas tree vortex for 6 months from Capricorn to Cancer, and lowering 1 degree per day on the way back out, and the moon doing 13.22 degrees up per day for 14 days a month and down for 14 days, it's true. No matter which ring the apparent sun's wave is traveling around between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, anywhere else on any point around that same ring should experience the same. This does not require or prove a globe. It happens the exact same on the flat Earth map, and software can also be made using these same angular calculations on a flat Earth map. We know which rings they are on based on which days, because our entire Gregorian calendar is set up around the cardinal point solstices and equinoxes on the zodiac, and we celebrate holidays there to remind us. They never change. And even on the flat Earth system, this should be happening for these Antarctic bases allegedly on the same latitude lines as each other, yet they are not reporting the same. So the question is that because they are squeezing them onto a completely fictional round continent that doesn't exist in reality? For example, Rothera Base is on the exact same alleged 67.33 south latitude ring as Mawson Base, even though they are across the entire alleged continent. What happens in latitude stays in latitude, and Rothera is just less than 1 degree latitude difference from Molodezhnaya, Casey, and Mirny Base, also way across the alleged continent. Remember, from other bases on that latitude like Davis and Zhongshan with a 0.9 to 1 degree latitude difference, this is only 32 to 36 miles difference in latitude, not some huge distance. So the alleged 24-hour sun must start on the same day for Rothera and Mawson, not maybe November 28th, 29th, or 30th, a 3-day difference, depending on whose accurate globe software you ask. And we are to believe that the alleged 24-hour sun for 3 other bases on 32 to 36 miles latitude away don't start their 24-hour suns until December 7th, or is it 10th, or is it December 5th? These 3 are off by 3 days from each other for the exact same base, and the total area for that latitude is November 28th to December 10th, a 13-day discrepancy. Molodezhnaya is on 66.39 south latitude, 6 miles latitude difference from Mirny, yet the Russians say Molodezhnaya starts November 29th, 7 days earlier than Mirny. How does Molodezhnaya's 24-hour sun start before or on the same day as Rothera or Mawson if it is 32 miles farther north or away from the alleged South Pole in latitude than they are? It's the same with the alleged ending of the alleged 24-hour sun. So when is it, oh accurate globe model software oracle? January 12th, 13th, 14th, 11th, 3rd, 5th, 7th? That's a 12-day discrepancy, but at least one more day accurate than the 13 days going in. At least being on identical alleged latitude rings, Rothera and Mawson have to have identical day lengths as each other on the dates before and after they at least agree there was no alleged 24-hour sun, or we don't live on a globe. And they don't. These two disagree by 37 minutes on how long Rothera's day length even is. Despite claiming to be so accurate, they can measure the day to 10 seconds or 34 seconds, not just the minute. And they disagree by 32 minutes on Mawson, despite, again, accuracy to the second. One claims Mawson gets nearly 10 more minutes of daylight than Rothera, and the other says, no, Mawson gets 14 more minutes than Rothera. Except at 67.33 south latitude, you're talking about an alleged Earth rotation speed moving the sun at 401 miles per hour, or 6.6 miles per minute, which is 85 miles of inaccuracy over 13 minutes, and 32-minute difference is like saying you didn't notice 211 miles of extra sunlight, despite each claiming day length accuracy to the exact second. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But look at November 27th, a 51-minute day-length discrepancy for Rothera, despite each claiming accuracy to the second. A 46-minute day-length discrepancy for Mawson, despite the same. Again, it's an inconsistent inconsistency. How can you disagree by 51 minutes for Rothera on November 27th, but only 27 minutes January 15th? Or by 46 minutes for Mawson November 27th, but only 32 minutes January 15th. Again, while claiming your stats are all accurate to the exact second. And it's more damning when we look at the other 2 bases we have day length stats on, Casey and Mirny, allegedly only 32 to 36 miles north in latitude. How, on November 27th, even though nobody can agree it's day length, can Casey only be getting, let's just average 21 hours of day length, while Rothera is claiming 23 and a half hours, 2.5 hours more, or Mirny getting 2 hours less than Rothera or Mawson? Imagine the sun sets at 7 p.m. in Pompano Beach, Florida. So you just drive 32 miles south from Pompano Beach to Miami to get 2.5 more hours sunlight until 9:30 p.m. because Miami is 32 miles closer to the Tropic of Cancer where the sun goes by in the summer. Since the minutely larger Miami latitude ring is 32 miles closer to the alleged sun 93 million miles away. That is obviously ridiculous to believe these two latitude lines would have a 2.5-hour day length difference, yet here we are, led to believe the same in Antarctica. And again, the same problem January 15th, off by nearly 2 hours. When facts aren't actually factual, Jaron, we don't call that the truth. We call that imagination. It will probably come as no surprise by now that it's even worse when we compare San Martin base to its alleged latitude ring twin bases, Davis, Leningradskaya, Druzhnaya, and Neumayer 2. Again, we're looking at a tiny 6 or 7 mile alleged latitude difference between San Martin's alleged 68.07 south latitude and Davis's alleged 68.3 south latitude. Yet between 3 different sites, their alleged dates, the alleged 24-hour sun starts, are off by 5 whole days from each other, claiming anywhere from November 23rd, 24th, 25th, or 27th. Yet they're only off by 4 days from each other coming out. But still, which is it? January 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th? Again, they all three give day length times to the exact second, meaning they claim precision to the exact second in their accuracy. So how can they all be off by 4 or 5 days with something so simple as, did the fucking sun stop dropping out of the sky briefly since 5 days ago, or didn't it? That shouldn't be too hard to miss. And their sister bases, off by only 32 to 36 miles north latitude, are, as always, wildly off by 12 to 14 days. You can pause and look for yourself. And it's the same again with their day lengths. For the days they at least all agreed there was no alleged 24-hour sun before and after their alleged 24-hour sun periods. What happens in latitude doesn't stay in latitude in Antarctica, apparently. 6 miles of latitude difference now gets an hour and a half difference in daylight from each other. Pause and do the maths yourself. As this film is approaching 2 hours long, I see no point in beating a dead fallacy further. My research should be repeatable, verifiable, and more importantly, refutable or falsifiable if I am wrong. Jaron claims that if you move the latitude around the globe, the daylight hours never change. More impressive is that they, quote, all without exception match exactly their counterpart. False. We have shown without exception, not even a single one in Antarctica matches its latitude counterpart in not only day length, but even if the sun is allegedly up all day that day or not. Jaron used one software that he played around on for a few hours and saw that locations on same latitudes have identical properties on that Andrew Marsh model. Great. Except you have to check it against other programs and sites to see if they match as well. Jaron claims that if you map the Earth on a sphere, then every sunrise and sunset time and angle is predicted and explained and accounted for every single location there is, the entire globe, and all places on it. The globe predicts this with 100% accuracy, and no one has ever been able to correctly map this place unless they place us on a sphere. False. Every single one of the sites shown in this film claim we live on a spherical globe and hence all use global mapping for their data. and in not even one single instance were any of them able to agree on even a single sunrise time, sunset time, length of day, or even what date the sun allegedly stopped going down. Not even once. All wildly off from each other. And since 3 to 6 sources, all with conflicting data, cannot all be telling the truth, all but one have to be lying or incorrect. And since you cannot tell which one, you have no clue or proof they aren't all lying. Most importantly, seeing and filming this etheric light vibration circling around your head in one location with no further questions, doubts, or investigation, having never even been to any of the other locations, claiming to experience the same phenomenon, to double check that their claims are even true, and even if you did go check and they do experience it as well, is not proof that this must be a burning space fireball 93 million miles away, or that this dumb shit you spent 10 years debunking thoroughly is the only other choice available to explain it, especially when it doesn't do to your location what it provably does to its northern alleged latitude counterpart during their 24-hour circling summer light period. That is just either or fallacious thinking. That's fine for opinion, but not acceptable as claim or proof, truth or fact, and frankly, claiming that anyone who doesn't agree with your factless and disprovable opinion is going against God, who would not deceive the world by showing us that the Earth matches a globe model, is maniacal and fanatical. God complex much, anyone? So here's my opinion, not claim of proof, truth or fact, open to change with new information, see what I did there, Jaron, on why I suspect they are lying and it's not the software. I went into 10 of the many bases on the Antarctic Peninsula who don't claim to have a 24-hour sun period at all and just used December 21st as a benchmark date to check their sunrise, sunset times, day lengths, and solar noons on that day. As always, the bases that had 2 sites to double check against all agreed on the exact same solar noon time, like Esperanza, Mariambo, Orcadas, and Palmer Station, yet as always, not once did either of their almighty globe software also get identical times for any of their sunrise, sunsets, or day lengths, disproving once again Jaron's claims that these globe softwares are so accurate that their accuracy proves the globe. They are as accurate as hitting a guy with a shotgun spray and claiming you scored a direct headshot. But the thing is, if you pause and look, they are only off from each other by 7 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the longest, consistently. Nothing as wildly off as 50 minutes to over 2 hours, like when we looked at the days before and after alleged 24-hour sun periods for the bases alleging those periods. So how is it their softwares are suddenly consistently closer to each other for these bases, yet so wildly off and inconsistent for the bases of suspect? My opinion and theory, not claim of fact, see what I did there, Jaron, is that these bases are really all geographically here, outside of the sweet spot of the apparent 24-hour sun, so there is no reason to fudge their data. Another thing I find suspicious is that Union Glacier is one of the few places they actually take tourists to all of the time, yet none of the online sites, timeanddate.com, dateandtime.info, timegenie.com, sunriseandsunset.com, etc., bother to give their location, sunrise and sunset times, day lengths, solar noons, or period of alleged 24-hour sun. Isn't that one place people would want to know? It's also conveniently in the middle of nowhere, so for those in the Dave Weiss Marty Leeds camp that this may have been faked with plasma technology, it is the perfect place to do it, and I would suggest people digging into it should look at Lieutenant Arturo Parodi, a Chilean military base. That's where they would have done it from, and strangely, it's supposed to be just northeast of Union Glacier Station, but when you take its alleged GPS coordinates and paste them into Google Earth, it takes you in the opposite direction of Union Glacier, south, and when you zoom into those coordinates, there is absolutely nothing there. Lastly, for this film's time's sake, when we look at Rothera and Vernadsky bases, the two closest bases to each other where one, Rothera, is allegedly having periods of 24-hour sun and the other, Vernadsky, is admittedly not, there is a strange anomaly there that makes one have to suspect the legitimacy of Rothera's claim. Vernadsky is 193 miles northeast of Rothera, which you can see is 2 full degrees of latitude north, from Rothera's 67.33 to Vernadsky's 65.14. And Vernadsky is only 4 degrees east of Rothera at 64.15 west longitude to Rothera's 68.7 west longitude, which is what we see here. Note that they are both exactly in the same time zone, UTC minus 3 hours, so what I'm about to show you cannot be explained by a time zone difference. For Rothera in yellow, Wednesday, November 27th is the last day Rothera claims not to have an alleged 24-hour sun. So we can at least compare that date to Vernadsky in purple to its northeast. We can see that Vernadsky gets its solar noon, the time when the actual apparent sun is closest to it, at 1:04 p.m. for their time zone, and 16 minutes later, Rothera gets its solar noon at 1:20 p.m., meaning it took the actual apparent sun 16 minutes to travel from east to west between those two base longitudes. Yet they claim the sun rose that morning an hour and 17 minutes later at Vernadsky than Rothera. Rothera's sunrise first at 1:34 a.m. and Vernadsky's second at 2:51 a.m. The source sun cannot outrun its preceding sunlight that it is the source of any more than this flashlight can get ahead of its own light beam off in the distance. The sun's preceding light cannot reach Rothera an hour and 17 minutes before Vernadsky in the morning, but then reach Vernadsky first 16 minutes before Rothera in the afternoon. When you are told to accept this as reality and to accept this as reality because of accurate globe computer software modeling, and then aside from these two, not even a single other one out of over 400 data points agree with either themselves or each other and verify that claim, who in sane and sound mind would base their beliefs on that? I have admittedly been unfairly harsh to Jaron in this film without walking a mile in his shoes, and my brother Marty Leeds has reminded me to tread with compassion. Thank you, Marty. And I have presented my own opinions in this film, which may be just as wrong as the fallacies I have debunked here. I don't claim to know how this realm works, only how I can prove it doesn't. I am not claiming my Antarctica research to be the end-all, only a starting point for others to expand on. I'm just a one-man shop and asking others to take this research, find other sources, and add to it. Verify me, debunk me if I am wrong, I'm open to it. To double check my info, for dateandtime.info, select continents, Antarctica. There you get all the bases they have, select one, you get your time zone, alleged latitude and longitude, scroll down and click monthly sunrise, sunset, choose your month and year. Timeanddate.com is a little tricky, but pull up this link, timeanddate.com/sun/?query equals Syowa, Syowa plus Antarctica, and you'll get a list of most of their bases. Click any one, scroll down, put in your month and year, then scroll down again. Some bases aren't on their main list, but can be found through a back door if you type the base name in here and hit enter. Sunrise.maplogs.com is a total pain in the ass and only has these 5 bases out of all of the other ones I compared, and you need to beware. They do not make adjustments for time zones like the other sites, so you will find their times wildly off by 3 to 7 hours that you have to adjust yourself. So I've made this chart to help you adjust for each base. Take a screenshot now and thank me later. Base searches by name don't even work here by address, so you have to scroll down to this unalphabetized mess of shit, find Antarctica right after Nicaragua, scroll down to the list of bases they do have, and choose one of the 5 common ones. And even those times aren't correct. You have to click Show All Dates and it will readjust. And then you can scroll down all year to the date you want after that. Again, remember to readjust the time zones accordingly per base. For a rotational speed at latitude calculator, go to this link on vcalc.com, bookmark it, scroll down, put in your east latitude number, and then you can select miles per hour, kilometers, minutes, etc. There are loads more I don't have time to put in this film, but they are a great place for you to go discover for yourself. You have several near-latitude matches that are mismatches with Mario Zucchelli, Concordia, Conan, Sfia, and Haley, getting anywhere from 104 to 106, 105, 103, and 109 alleged days of 24-hour sun, plus some more mismatched comparisons in this entire area. It has been suggested that these bases be plotted out on the Gleason AE map, as it has latitude lines going as far out as 90 degrees south, the outer ring, and west longitude. If you want to do that, I would suggest dateandtime.info and choose continent Antarctica, so you'll have a handy list of all the stations to click and see their alleged latitude and longitude coordinates to plot. I wanted to end this film with a quote from the 1904 book Zetetic Astronomy by Lady Blount and Albert Smith, and give a shout out to Karen B. for the reminder that there is nothing new under the sun. These southern Zetetics know that the earth and sea are horizontal, flat, and stationary, yet they are candid enough to testify to the celestial motions which some illogically think are opposed to this great fact. But one fact can never contradict another fact. Both must be true. Zetetics, therefore, in the north, must be candid enough to accept the facts on celestial motion in the south, just as we wish globularlists, or globeheads as we say, to be candid and reasonable to accept the well-known fact that water is level and the earth therefore a plane. Only those who are candid and sincere will arrive at all at the truth. Though they may not obtain it all, they certainly will obtain much more than those who are not candid. Food for thought, Jaron.